Hey guys, welcome back to my video. So it's been a few days after delivery. I wasn't able to film much in the hospital, so this will be kind of an update on how the delivery process went and how the baby is doing. So the delivery was a bit traumatic, to say the least. I was scheduled for a C-section. For those of y'all who don't know my story, I had a ton of amniotic fluid. My baby was going to be big. We knew that. And he was breech. So we went ahead and scheduled the C-section for 38 weeks. So 38 weeks rolled around. We went in pretty excited, was excited to have the baby finally come out because I was pretty uncomfortable. And of course, everybody wants their baby out by 38 weeks. And so we kind of did an ultrasound. They couldn't find his heartbeat at first, but they ended up finding him. They couldn't tell his orientation. He was squished so far down, like below my belly button. And he was rounded. So like the spine, like the bottom of his back was rounded around where my vajayjay would be. His head was off to the side, and his knees and his arms were all scrunched up. So he was just kind of like felt real shoved down in one position, kind of cramped. So, they knew where he was. We go ahead and we go on to do the C-section, which was pretty scary. It was my first one. And, they did the spinal block. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but I was still super anxious. I have anxiety anyways. But I kind of got through that, and then they laid me down and started the process pretty shortly thereafter. And my husband was able to come in and be with me. And I knew something was wrong when the surgeon just kept repeating, "Come on, baby, come on, baby." He was tugging and pulling and basically just screaming at the baby. And I really thought maybe he was stillborn or something. You kind of have that thought and worry sometimes if you're diabetic and kind of had some of the complications I did. Stillbirths happen, and I was pretty worried. And then we never really heard him cry. We barely heard a tiny whimper. And then all the nurses were yelling and screaming and trying to get help. And they were doing CPR pretty much right away. So my husband and I were kind of right there, and off to the left was where they were all surrounding the baby. They were working on him, and they basically just whisked him off to the NICU. So we didn't get to hold him or really bond or anything like that. They finished up, the surgery and closed me up and did all of their things, and then kind of got me into a recovery room. And in that recovery room, there was another lady. And let me remind y'all, I have anxiety. I was trying to still calm myself down. I was really shaky, which I guess is like an after effect of C-sections. So I'm in there, I'm trying to listen to my meditations. My husband had left the room. And then all of a sudden I hear code blue, and the other girl next to me was seizing, and everyone was rushing around, and my husband couldn't get back in the room because, they were doing a code blue and all the nurses were going crazy. And then, he thought maybe it was for me because he didn't know. So it was just a big mess. So I got moved out of there pretty quickly so they could work on the girl. Still don't know what happened to her. Kind of curious. And then anyways, they went ahead and took me up to my own room for my hospital stay. So that stay went, pretty well. The first day, I basically was in bed all day. It took my legs all day to start to feel better. So I never really was able to get up and out of bed till like 10 o'clock at night. My baby was born at 10 in the morning, if that gives you an idea. And so I didn't even really see him that first day. My husband was able to go to the NICU and get updates for me. The baby was born as close to death as possible, is what the doctors keep reminding us and keep telling us how super sick he is. So he was born at 38 weeks. He weighed 10 pounds, 3 ounces. and I had 5 liters of amniotic fluid in my stomach. So, you know, I was telling my kids, I was trying to explain how much that fluid that was, and I told him, you know, 2 liters of soda plus, you know, half. So it was just a lot for him to swim around in. They think that maybe his cord could have got cramped quite a bit. He wasn't getting what he needed from the placenta. They tested the placenta immediately after the delivery, and they told us that our baby was going to need to be cooled for 72 hours. So that would basically prevent further injuries from happening, and kind of freeze in whatever stage any damage that's already been done, because like I said, he was pretty close to being dead when he was born. So, you know, his lungs weren't working right, obviously. He wasn't breathing on his own. He needed to have all of his systems basically cooled for 72 hours. So what they had to do was, you know, hook him up to all the machines, put him under like a cooling blanket, and they cooled his core body temperatures down to around 89 or 90 degrees. And it had to last for pretty much exactly 72 hours. So those were pretty much the longest 72 hours of my life. So we would go and visit him. And there was nothing really we could do, you know, other than look at him and kind of touch his knee or his little hands, and just pray over him, basically. It's pretty sad to see your kids laying there pretty lifeless. They had him, of course, under a ton of sedation, and his whole body was vibrating from the ventilator. It was an old machine, but it also just like kept on going like, so it was pretty weird to see him kind of shaking that whole constant time. And, you know, his vitals and his numbers were kind of all over the place. His blood pressure would go low or too high. He wouldn't urinate enough. And a lot of those systems that they were controlling by machines were just basically keeping him going. So it took like 72 hours, like I already said. And then they decided to warm him up and start the warming up process, which would take 6 hours. That was the day I was discharged. So I had to go back that night and see how he was doing after he was warmed up. And it looked completely different in there. He had less machines, obviously, hooked up to him. Still on the ventilator, still has all the tubes and still sedated. And he was just more warm, basically. But nurses told us that he came through the process like a champ. So that was promising and reassuring. Some babies, you know, have seizures when they're being warmed up, or they, you know, freak out a little bit or have crazy reactions, but he seemed to be doing pretty good. His heart rate looked good. His blood pressure actually looked good. His urine output was still poor, but that was something that we had known like previously. And he was breathing, you know, with the ventilator. And one exciting thing is he actually opened his eyes and kind of looked around, because I guess he was kind of waking up. But then they, of course, sedated him more because they want to, you know, keep him going and prevent him from being in any pain for now while they run tests and keep him hooked up to machines. So that's where we're at. It's a pretty scary situation. Now that he's warm, we're going to be able to find out more, like if he has any issues. Once they do the MRI, we'll have a lot more information about his brain and the activity there, which is a huge concern for us. And obviously, we're trying to be optimistic, but realistic at the same time. So I'm going to insert a few pictures, and I guess I will be posting more videos shortly. Thanks y'all for watching. Bye. Okay, y'all, today's the day. I'm excited. We are here for my C-section, and hopefully in a couple hours we'll have a baby. I'm excited. Can't wait.